Hello my friends and welcome to a special Baldur's Gate 3 update video. Hope you're all doing well. So I had a different video scheduled for today, but as of a couple hours ago at time of recording, Baldur's Gate 3 just launched Hotfix number 30 with a number of very significant changes to the new subclasses, which will probably significantly affect how they are built and played in Honor mode, and also fixed one of the oldest bugs in the game, which was previously stopping an entire category of builds from being as strong as they should be. They were playable, but will now be excellent. So I wanted to quickly go over the patch changes in this hotfix, talk about what new builds are going to be enabled, and then we'll do a bunch of build sketches. I won't do full build guides, but I'll talk about several of the new kinds of builds that we can build in the future now that this bug has been fixed, and we'll do some quick sketches as to how you'll level them up so that you can give them a try now that they actually work. So firstly, let's quickly go over the new patch notes and just talk about the really significant changes that were bug fixed here. So we're going to skip the modding changes, though these are important, but we're mostly interested in the gameplay and scripting changes. So firstly, fixed the wrong range on Divine Allegiance. Divine Allegiance is the Oath of the Crown Paladin ability that lets you heal an ally and take damage instead of them. It now only works in melee range. Previously, it was working further than melee range. Honestly, given that this ability was nerfed from the tabletop version, I feel like they could leave the range, the higher range intact, but this now at least does work the way that the tooltip says. Fixed an issue with the Gloves of Battlemage's power interaction with dual-wielded weapons. So the issue here was that you could, for example, have Shadowblade in your offhand and then make an attack with a main hand weapon and it would generate arcane acuity stacks, even though it itself was not a magical weapon or a spell attack or a cantrip attack. I haven't checked if just holding on to Shadowblade with the Gloves of Battlemage's power still makes like Eldritch Blasts generate arcane acuity, so I'll test that in a second. Fix a bug causing paladins to lose their auras after a long rest. Obviously annoying, glad that's gone, same with the War Priest change. But here's the big change, and this is going to be a pretty significant nerf to a character that people were using. Now, I expected this to be nerfed at some point and was surprised that it wasn't changed before they launched patch 8, but Tavern Brawler no longer adds a damage bonus to Elemental Cleaver's elemental damage in Honor mode. So Elemental Cleaver, the Giant Barbarian level 6 ability that makes your weapon thrown and does extra damage, was adding Tavern Brawler damage and rage damage again in Honor mode. So with those damage stacking bugs fixed, Giant Barbarian is no longer doing wildly more damage than it should be doing and is no longer just a free pass to winning Honor mode. I think the character will still be very, very strong, but with those bugs fixed, it will no longer be doing like 20 more damage a shot. More than it was supposed to, so you will have to do damage the normal way where you actually need to kill the enemies in 2 hits rather than just 1. Fixed a bug where this is just a story bug, which is a useful fix, but this is the major change that I really want to highlight, is Polearm Clout now properly gains bonuses to its weapon damage from various sources. So this is the offhand attack from Polearm Master. With the Polearm Master feat, when you attack with a polearm, like a halberd or glaive or spear, you can, as a bonus action, hit them with the butt of the polearm for a d4 of damage, plus your strength modifier, and it's supposed to add all of your other damage sources, but it wasn't doing that. So it wouldn't add damage from things like Hunter's Mark, or especially Great Weapon Master. This has now been fixed, so Polearm Master, Great Weapon Master builds can now trigger their Great Weapon Master damage with the bonus action attack from Polearm Clout, vastly increasing the damage of those characters and making an already fairly solid feat that gave you off-turn attacks pretty frequently really good. So a lot of builds that relied on Polearm Master and Sentinel can now also use Great Weapon Master and have your bonus action offhand attack do an enormous amount of damage, basically getting to be a character that uses a two-handed main hand weapon and just gets a whole extra attack with their bonus action all the time. So Polearm Clout is now a really, really powerful ability when it applies those extra damaging effects, and those builds are going to be very, very strong and an incredibly powerful way to build fighters. In a minute, I'll take you through a couple ways that we could potentially build those characters, whether that be as a monoclass fighter or with some multi-classing. I'll show you some ideas, but Polearm Clout is now a really powerful ability. This has been bugged for multiple years, and honestly, I did not expect it to ever be fixed, so the fact that Polearm Master is now fixed is awesome. I think that this probably happened as part of the fix where they now use their charisma modifier for the Polearm Cloud attack if you are a Hexblade Warlock or have Pact of the Blade. So Hexblade Warlocks can now use polearms very, very effectively, and again, can use Great Weapon Master damage. The offhand attack will apply Hexblade's Curse as well, so all of those options are going to be an incredibly strong way to build Warlock characters, as well as fighters, barbarians, and even rogues. Magical Ambush no longer keep disappearing while sneaking, so this was an interface issue that was really irritating. Also, you can upcast Cloud Kill, which is pretty cool, and updated Shadowblade to only give advantage to melee weapon attacks while the Shadowblade is equipped, to melee weapon attacks specifically. So previously, again, you could have the Shadowblade, and it was giving advantage to any attack that you made while you were concealed in darkness, of any kind, or in an unlit area. So it was giving advantage to ranged attacks with the bow, spell attacks made with things like Eldritch Blast. That has been fixed as well, so Shadowblade is no longer just a free passive source of advantage on all of your attacks. So what I think is going to change significantly out of these things is that Giant Barbarians took a big hit because they're no longer bugged, though they're still going to be a very, very powerful class, and on Tactician or below, the bugs are still intact, so you can still just use them to one-shot pretty much everything. Polearm Master characters with Great Weapon Master are now going to be a staple build, because an easy way to apply that extra plus 10 damage of Great Weapon Master is a very, very strong way to build fighters, and may even be the best way to build fighters. We'll have to do a little bit more testing to see if it outpaces other Great Weapon builds, but Polearm builds are now excellent. And Shadowblade is still going to be incredible, but is no longer going to just completely break the game whenever you have it equipped, no matter whether you're using it or not. A couple more things that were changed, so some more new subclass abilities here. Kills made while drunk now count for the drunk achievement. That makes perfect sense. And some updated descriptions. Also, another major bug that was fixed. The chance to inflict Hexblade's Curse no longer increases every time you rebind your Pact weapon. So previously what was happening was you're supposed to get a 20% chance of inflicting Hexblade's Curse whenever you attack with your Pact weapon as a Hexblade Warlock. But every time you rebound your Pact weapon, it was giving you a separate 20% chance. So on your first cast of it, it would give you a 20% chance every time you attacked. If you cast it twice, it would give you a 36% chance. If you cast it 3 times, it would give you a almost 50% chance, and so on. So you could recast it over and over again until every attack was nearly guaranteed to apply Hexblade's Curse and get massive amounts of free damage, lots and lots of extra summons, the ability to block attacks with your reaction much more frequently as well. So that bug fix does not cause Hexblade Warlock to not still be one of the most powerful possible characters in the game. Hexblade Warlocks are still busted, but at least they're no longer applying free Hexblade's curses on every single attack. Also, I really am glad for this change as well. Circle of the Stars Druids can now actually gain the later game wild shapes, including the Owlbear wild shape for more mobility, the Panther wild shape for stealth. So while you're still going to be in your star form most of the time as a Circle of the Stars Druid, the ability to use the upgraded wild shapes gives you a lot more utility as a character. So really happy to see that those have been fixed. Obviously, that's a very important part of Druid as a class, so being able to turn into an Owlbear and jump around, even if most of the time you would rather be in dragon form or in archer form, still gives that class a much a very valuable boost to their capabilities. They didn't really need the buff, they were still excellent, but this will come up occasionally, maybe once or twice in a playthrough, and also just gives you a lot of really fun options if you decide you just want to be an Owlbear for one fight in particular. Keep on looking at these things, but I think that's it. So the major, in terms of major changes that we care about, lots of crash changes and everything, which is obviously great, but the major balance changes are Giant Barbarian took a big hit, so you're going to have to be a little more careful about how you build those characters, because they're no longer getting a massive amount of bugged damage and sort of winning for free. And polearm characters are now massively more powerful and much more exciting to build, and let's look at how we might build some. So first, let's look at a fighter, and I think that this may now be the strongest way to build a Battlemaster or Champion fighter, because the amount of battlefield control that you get is very high, and the amount of damage that you do has been increased significantly by this combo. For your race pick for this build, if you take half-elf or high half-elf, then you get Booming Blade as well, which increases your damage even further. Those are now the best two races for pretty much any martial build that doesn't get spellcasting access. This character, I think, you actually don't want to do the Polearm Master thing for Eldritch Knight fighters, though it's still very good for them, but they need it less than the other characters do because they always get free bonus action attacks thanks to the combination of Booming Blade and War Magic, but for Battlemasters and Champions, this combo is going to be excellent. So how you'll build this character is, of course, with Great Weapon Fighting. You'll want one attribute item. That can be Ethel's Hair, it can be an Elixir of Strength, it could even be the Gloves of Dexterity, though probably you want either Ethel's Hair, Elixir of Strength, or the Gauntlets of Strength in order to make this character work as well as possible, and then we'll just do a very standard attribute split. I'll assume we're using Ethel's Hair here, so we'll do 17 Strength and then buff that, but obviously with the Elixirs, you would reduce your Strength accordingly. Wait for the loading screen here. Then at level 2, of course, we aren't going to change anything. At level 3, we're going to take either Battlemaster or Champion. Obviously, Battlemaster is significantly stronger than Champion, but either of these work. Arcane Archers, of course, do not want to use a polearm, so we probably won't go with that. And for our maneuvers here, we'll take Precision Attack, Trip Attack, and Push Attack, because Push Attack will allow us to trigger extra Polearm Master attacks. You push an enemy away, they have to come back towards you, and then you Polearm Master attack them again, because it lets you hit them when it's not your turn. So pushing attack is going to be excellent, and of course Precision and Tripping Attack are just generally really good. We don't need Riposte, because we will be using our reaction to attack with Polearm Master, rather than with Riposte, so we don't need the Riposte attack for a Battlemaster. Level 4, we get a feat, and we have a choice here. We can either grab Polearm Master right away, but I think in general we're still going to want to pick Great Weapon Master first. Great Weapon Master just increases your damage so much that having it as early as possible is going to vastly improve your damage output, especially if you have a character that can buff your hit chance, like with the Bless spell. Level 5, no choices to make, but more attacks, obviously, is more good. And then at level 6, we're going to go ahead and pick up Polearm Master. This will allow us to make our bonus action attack with the butt of the polearm, so we're making 3 attacks every turn and doing 30 bonus damage with Great Weapon Master, even if we don't critical hit. Now, if you critical hit, you get to attack with the main part of the... or critical hit or kill an enemy, you get to use your bonus action on your Great Weapon Master bonus attack, but Polearm Master gives you a great fallback option, so you always have the opportunity to use a bonus action to attack, so pretty significant increase to our damage output. Level 7, we get some more maneuvers, so we can go ahead and pick up Disarming Attack, and you can take a Riposte now in case you don't get a Polearm Master attack and want to stay next to enemies, especially because this character is now going to try to keep enemies next to them, because at level 8, we get to take another feat, and we can take Sentinel, doing the classic Polearm Master Sentinel combo. So when an enemy comes towards you, you can make an opportunity attack and hit them, and then we gain advantage on those opportunity attacks, and they can't move. If you're using a polearm with enough reach, like a halberd or pike or something like that, then you will hit them before they enter melee range. Now, Baldur's Gate's movement is a little bit buggy about this, so it won't always work 100% of the time, but a reasonable amount of the time, you'll hit them before they enter melee range, halt their movement, and they'll just lose the rest of their turn because they won't be able to do anything. So this gives you a lot of control. You can also keep enemies next to you. And since we have the extra damage with Polearm Master, this combo is now even more powerful than it was previously. And then, of course, we're going to simply finish off our fighter build by leveling up. We can take kind of whatever maneuvers we feel like we want at this point. There aren't that many that are that important, though you can grab Rally to bring allies up from being knocked down. You can take, like, Goading Attack or something like that. At this point, you're mostly not using the last maneuvers that you have. So whatever you feel like you need. Then, of course, we get improved extra attack. And then we just max out our strength in order to make our attacks even better. So that's what I think the Battlemaster Great Weapon Fighter is going to look like. And I think that this is now probably the best way to build Battlemaster Fighters, because you can use really powerful weapons. You can use there are a lot of really powerful polearms, like the Halberd of Vigilance, that have longer reach. You can also use polearms that don't have longer reach. I mean, Char's Spear of Evening is still an amazing weapon, and getting an offhand attack with that is still really good, even if you aren't using the Sentinel Polearm Master combo to its fullest extent. But this gives you a ton of battlefield control and a ton of damage. Another really cool option, and honestly, I think this one's actually really awesome, and I can't wait to try it in a game, is to do this with Rogue, which allows you to use your dexterity for your Polearm Master attacks using the Dancing Breeze Glaive. The Glaive Rogue, I actually think, is now maybe one of the strongest ways to build a monoclassed melee rogue, weirdly enough. And it works with all 4 of the rogue subclasses because all of them have unique benefits that apply to the Polearm Master style. And I think this character has great battlefield control, amazing utility, obviously, because you're a rogue, tons of mobility, which lets you position yourself in the right place to use your Polearm Master attacks, and a bunch of unique synergy with the Polearm Master and Sentinel stuff, as well as getting 4 feats, which makes it a little easier to manage as a rogue. This is an option only available to certain races, because rogues don't naturally get glaive proficiency, so you need to play a race that has glaive proficiency. But luckily, the best possible option, Half-Elf, does get glaive proficiency and gets a wizard cantrip, which of course can be Booming Blade. Only available to Shadowheart if you're playing Origin Shadowheart, but obviously available to any other custom character. So getting Booming Blade and Glaive proficiency means that you can be a Glaive Rogue running around the battlefield, blowing stuff up, and locking them down with Polearm Master attacks. Of course, for this character, we're going to need to use one attribute item as well. That can either be Ethel's Hair or the Gloves of Dexterity. Either work very well for this character. For this guide, I'm going to assume that you're using Ethel's Hair, so no matter what rogue subclass we're taking, we're going to take 17 Dexterity in order to hit 18 with Ethel's Hair, and then 20 with an ASI, and we'll take 16 in Constitution in order to max out our Constitution. Our other attributes are going to depend a little bit on what other rogue subclass we're taking. We're going to take a 10-14-8 split, but in which attribute depends. For Thief or Assassin Rogue, we don't need Intelligence or Charisma particularly, so we'll take 14 in Wisdom just to have the highest possible saving throws, and then you can put the 10 either in Intelligence or Charisma depending on which you feel like you want more. Intelligence is very slightly better if you're not doing dialogue checks, and obviously Charisma is better if you are. Either one of those works just fine. If you're an Arcane Trickster Rogue, then you're going to want the 14 in Intelligence so that you can actually use your offensive spellcasting, because Arcane Tricksters give enemies disadvantage on spells. Spells like Hold Person work very well for them, even with only 14 Intelligence, so very strong there. And of course, if you are a Swashbuckler Rogue, then you're going to want higher Charisma so you can use your Swashbuckler abilities more effectively as well. So it's going to depend a little bit on which kind of rogue you are, what your attribute spread is going to be, but either way, it's going to be these 3 numbers, just arranged slightly differently. As you level up the character, we, at Rogue level 2, don't have any particular decisions that we need to make. Oh yeah, Strength Elixirs also work for the Rogue build. Just because we need a Finesse weapon doesn't mean that we need to actually be attacking using our Dexterity, so you can also just use a Strength Elixir in order to max out your strength and just make glaive attacks using your strength instead. It will still work with all the abilities that require you to have a finesse weapon equipped. There's a million possible options for which subclass to take here. For this build guide, I'm just going to go with Thief Rogue. Thief Rogue, I think, gets a lot of benefit out of this playstyle because they get multiple bonus actions, so you can use one to move to the enemy and one to attack. if you have haste or another source of an additional attack, you can even do 2 bonus action attacks with the butt of your polearm in the same turn, all of which benefit from great weapon damage. So with haste and stuff like that, this character becomes a very significant damage-dealing threat as a Thief Rogue. Assassin Rogue gets you automatic criticals, Swashbuckler gets you the great Swashbuckler passives and a bunch of other stuff. And of course the Swashbuckler abilities, and then Arcane Trickster mostly gets you Booming Blade, but also the ability to use a lot of spells, so any of those options are excellent for this Polearm Master character, but we'll just demo using Thief Rogue. For our feat here, of course, we're going to take a Great Weapon Master. In the early game, there are dexterity-based swords, long swords that you can use, Falar Aluv and Lorathian's Wrath. And while we can't use our Polearm Master attacks with those, we can still use Great Weapon Master attacks with those. So this character is going to use Falar up until Act 3, when you can get access to the Dancing Breeze, and then swap to the Dancing Breeze. Level 5, no decisions that we have to make, and then at level 6, we get some more skills and everything, but again, no particular decisions that affect how we fight in combat. Similarly at level 7, but at level 8 we get another feat. The feat that we take here is going to depend a little bit on how fast you go through the game. We're going to want Sentinel and Polearm Master as our level 8 and level 10 feats. If you're already in Act 3 by the time you're level 8, because you've skipped a lot of quests and gone through the game really fast, you can take Polearm Master here. I think that most characters will not hit Act 3 at level 8, so we'll go ahead and take Sentinel. You can use Great Weapon Master and Sentinel. Sentinel has special synergy with Rogue as well, and other, as does Polearm Master, sources of offhand attacks, off-turn attacks like this, because you can still sneak attack with them. Sneak attack works where it resets the sneak attack at the end of your turn. So if you can only do 1 sneak attack per turn cycle, but it resets the end of your turn. So if you sneak attack an enemy on your turn, and then they trigger an opportunity attack from you, like by attacking one of your allies, and you get to whack them with the Sentinel feat, you get to sneak attack again. Now on your second turn in that combat, you won't have sneak attack, because you'll have used round 2's sneak attack during the enemy's turn. But Sentinel will kind of let you cheat and get sneak attack half a turn early, which can burst down enemies significantly faster before they get to finish their turns. So a pretty powerful synergy to have easy sources of off-turn attacks when you're playing a rogue, and one of the reasons that this build works so well. No particular thing at level 9 for this character, but at level 10, because we're a rogue, and many of you may not have seen this part of rogue because you rarely take 12 rogue levels in most optimized builds, but this character actually really likes 12 rogue levels, because you get another feat at rogue level 10, and your sneak attack damage goes up as well. So at rogue level 10, by this time you're probably in Act 3, you can take Polearm Master, and now you've got the Dancing Breeze and can make your off-turn attacks with Polearm Master, stop enemies with Sentinel. You also have advantage on all your attacks of opportunity, which allows you to apply sneak attack from Sentinel, which allows you to apply sneak attack even more easily when it's not your turn. So you have a lot of really solid synergy just with a monoclass rogue with the Sentinel Polearm Master build. And then, of course, we're going to cap it out by taking our last levels here and maxing out Rogue, making a very solid just melee brawler with mono rogue, maxing out, our attribute points, making just a very solid melee brawler with just 12 levels of rogue, which I think is really awesome. This character provides a lot of utility and control, and also does really solid damage. I will probably do a full build guide on this style of play at some point soon, but I was really excited that this is now possible. So this is yet another way to build a Polearm Master character. Another incredible option for a Polearm Master Fighter is with a Lock-It-In. This character will just do absurd amounts of damage by mixing Warlock spell slots, high-level Warlock spell slots that come back on a short rest, with Paladin Smites, and the bonus action attack, which means more uses of Great Weapon Master for even more damage, and even more Smites in a turn if you have the spell slots to fuel them. So this character just gets to dish out stratospheric amounts of damage, while also bringing a ton of the power of spellcasting and control that Hexblade Warlocks already naturally bring, and the utility that Paladins, of course, get as well. For this character, you also just naturally get Booming Blade. No need to be a half-elf in order to make that happen, so you can take Eldritch Blast and Booming Blade. And of course, we're going to take a Hexblade Warlock, which gets us shield, so it makes us better defensively also. Since this character wants to be up in the mix, it's really nice to have that, and then we can take Hex for even more damage. For this character, we will, of course, have to use Ethel's Hair as our attribute item because we need to max out our Charisma. And we get a limited number of feats with which to do that. So our attribute selection is going to look something like 16 in Dexterity, 17 in Charisma, 14 in Constitution, and 10 in Wisdom, for example. Since this character will not be able to spend its ASI on 1 point each in Constitution and Charisma, we can't get away with the pure greedy attribute spread, but this is a pretty solid spread that will give us the maximum amount of stats that we need, as well as good initiative, dexterity, and initiative, armor class, and everything, especially in the early game when we're in medium armor. You can start with a level of Paladin as well to gain heavy armor proficiency. That's a totally reasonable pick, and you may want to respec the character at later levels to have Paladin as your first class level, but I tend to just want to take 5 levels of Hexblade right away in order to get the super powerful Warlock abilities as early as possible. And then if you want Paladin as your first, if you feel like you want heavy armor on this character, then you just go ahead and respec and take Paladin at level 1 at later levels. Spells don't really matter at this level, though I guess Wrathful Smite could be a little bit more damage, but obviously Eldritch Invocations, we're going to go with the classic, Agonizing Blast and Devil's Sight. Level 3, of course, we're going to take the normally very powerful options. We don't need Shadow Blade because we don't intend to use a Shadow Blade weapon because we're going to be a Great Weapon Master Hexblade. So we're not taking Shadow Blade where other Hexblades might. Hold Person's pretty nice for this character. Of course, we want Darkness, and we need to take Pact of the Blade in order to get extra attack because of how Hexblade Warlock works. And then at level 4 here, we get to take Great Weapon Master, increasing our damage even further. This is just a huge amount of damage. Hexblade Warlocks also critically hit more often. Now, you do have to use your bonus action to apply Hexblade's Curse a lot, so you won't always have a bonus action to attack with, but anytime you don't have a great use for your bonus action, you will get... the worst use for your bonus action with this character is another whole attack, which is kind of ridiculously powerful floor for the character. Anytime you have something better to do than an attack, you're very happy because an attack is such a good thing to do. Of course, for our cantrip selection, we'll just kind of take whatever here, and then we'll take stuff like Misty Step, utility spells. But mostly we're focusing on our weapon attacks at this level. Get extra attack here, and have now powered up our character significantly, and then we can take Counter Spell, and we want to grab Hunger of Hadar, so we'll replace one of our earlier spells, whatever we're not using at this level. You can refer to my Warlock guides or my Hexblade guide for a more comprehensive spell selection. I'm just kind of doing things very quickly here because I want to show off the Polearm Master parts of this build. A Repelling Blast, still very useful for this character because push an enemy away from yourself, they have to move back towards you, you get a Polearm Master reaction attack. Level 6, we get to multi-class and take Paladin levels so that we can start getting our smite attacks. And for this character, we will probably still just want to be Oath of the Crown. The bonus to hit chance with Oath of the Crown is really, really good. You can also do Oath of Vengeance because this character wants to take 4 Paladin levels, so we get a 3rd feat because there's a lot of feats that we want with this character. But Oath of the Crown, I think, is still just the best dip for Paladin levels, and we will have lots of sources of advantage with our Darkness, so we don't need Oath of Vengeance as much for this character. We also won't hit level 7 to get Aura of Hate, so Oathbreaker doesn't do that much for us. Then at Paladin level 2, we of course get smite attacks and a fighting style, and great weapon fighting is just going to increase our damage even more. And this will apply to a lot of the bonus damage that we're dealing with our smite attacks and our booming blade attacks. So great weapon fighting is a massive increase to this character's damage as well. Then we keep leveling in Paladin, just grabbing some other spells like Command, which of course is really good for this character. This is amazing Arcane Acuity Band of the Mystic Scoundrel character as well, because we have command and can cause enemies to just drop to the ground, and of course we get the bonus action healing and everything, but mostly we're not here for that stuff. Although having Bless to concentrate on for this character is still pretty useful even at this level, because Bless is a very powerful increase to your hit chance, which, as a Great Weapon Master character, will take any bonuses to our hit chance that we can get. Then we're going to take another feat here, and the feat that we're going to take is Polearm Master. Up to this point, we can have used any great weapon, but Polearm Master at level 9 is fine because this character is going to want to use Char's Spear of Evening for preference. For this reason, we won't be taking Sentinel on this character because we're not using a weapon with extra reach. The Spear is a normal melee range weapon, but Polearm Master still works with it for the bonus attacks, and of course Char's Spear of Evening is maybe the single best weapon in the game to attack with, and incredible for this character because of all the darkness synergy that having Char's Spear of Evening gives us with our ability to make a lot of attacks and do a lot of damage, and with being a Warlock. Then, having gotten our feat from Paladin, we're going to go back to for more Warlock levels. We get Accursed Spectre, which of course can cover the battlefield in stuff and make enemies even more susceptible to running into our spells. Take something like Hypnotic Pattern here, because this character again can use the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel and the Helm of Arcane Acuity to lock down a ton of enemies. Or the Gloves of Battle Mage's power, since we have Booming Blade as well, also work really well for this character, though as a non-Shadow Blade Hexblade, the Gloves of Battle Mage's power are less powerful for us than for other Hexblade Warlocks. Then we get 4th level spell slots, which maxes out our smite damage, which is awesome as well. For our 4th level spells, we can just go back and grab utility spells. It mostly doesn't matter what spells we're selecting here, because all of our spell slots at this point are going to be spent on just smiting enemies and instantly killing them. But of course, having the lockdown spells available for if you happen to need them is really strong. And then at our last level, we get to take another spell selection, but mostly we get another feat and we can max out our charisma. For this character, again, we're not taking Sentinel, even though we have Polearm Master, because without extra reach, it loses a lot of value. Now, Sentinel is still very good for this character, so if you're using like a mod that gives you more feats, or just feel like you have enough charisma, although Hexblades, of course, can never get enough charisma, so you always want more. But if you're using a mod that gives you extra feats, so are able to max out your charisma and still take more, Sentinel's still an excellent pick for this character, as well as stuff like Warcaster, Lucky, even Mage Slayer is really great as well, so there's a lot of options to improve the character even further. But the Polearm Master, Great Weapon Master combo with Char's Spear of Evening for extra bonus action attacks, and tons of extra damage as a Hexblade, is really incredibly powerful. And of course, you have all of the broken combinations that Hexblades normally get, with Booming Blade plus the Potent Robe to do damage based on your charisma twice over with all of your Booming Blade attacks, and with Char's Spear of Evening just being an incredibly broken item. So this character takes some of the best advantage of some of the best items in the game, and I think is incredibly strong and probably really fun to play, though again, I haven't tested these builds in actual play. We're theory crafting here as a result. Alright friends, I hope you enjoyed this look at Hotfix 30 and the cool new builds that it enables. There's a lot of more stuff that we can do with Polearm Master and bonus damage. I didn't even touch on how it now works with Hunter's Mark, so you can do stuff with Rangers as well with Polearm Master, which I think is really cool. This is just 3 builds that I'm kind of theory crafting here that I think are really interesting and strong. And let me know if you enjoyed this type of video where we do a little more theory crafting. I'm obviously still going to do the more heavily play-tested and in-depth build guides, but this was a fun exercise to just kind of talk through some things that I'm excited about trying, because the hotfix just came in and enabled a bunch of stuff that has been kind of broken in Baldur's Gate 3 for so long that it is now much more powerful to be able to do it. As always, of course, if you have enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a comment and hit like, helps me out with the algorithm, so I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And you can subscribe to my channel for more Baldur's Gate 3 builds and other strategy game analysis. Cheers, folks. I'll catch you next time.